Hey guys, welcome to this course on Apache HTTPD web server. In this course, we will go over a number of items around Apache HTTPD, starting from installing Apache on Linux, learning the basics like the folder structure, configuration files, the commands to stop and start Apache, and then getting into the core strengths of Apache, like serving content, redirects, and reverse proxy configuration. This course is almost completely hands-on. It's filled with activities that I will perform on a Linux server. You will be able to learn a number of aspects of Apache HTTPD by watching me perform those tasks on a terminal. It will be a great learning experience. Apache was very popular many years back. How popular is it now? Let's take a look. Let's head over to Google Trends. Google Trends. Let's search for HTTPD. Let's expand it to worldwide and also make it all the way from 2004. So as you can see, the interest over time has definitely gone down. Let's compare it to, say, Nginx, which is another web server. And while the interest on Apache HTTPD has gone down, the reverse has happened for Nginx. So clearly, Nginx is a lot more popular today than Apache HTTPD. So knowing this, why did I make this course? And more importantly, why should you sign up? Now, as a sysadmin or web admin or even a DevOps resource, chances are you already have Apache installed somewhere in your company's environment. If that is the case, you really need to understand how it works, and hence this course. This course is targeted for those of you who really need a good understanding of Apache web server, so you can do a better job supporting it at work. Let's dive right into Apache HTTPD web server. Since there are so many different flavors of Linux, I will try to demonstrate installing Apache on two of them, Ubuntu and CentOS. Now I use VirtualBox for installing Ubuntu and CentOS on my local PC. And since this is a course on Apache, I will not be able to spend time on the steps for installing VirtualBox and then creating a VM for each of these operating systems. I will have to make the assumption that you are either familiar with those steps or you have access to a system which has these operating systems. Having said that, let's get started with installing Apache on Ubuntu. Alright, I've logged into the Ubuntu box. How do I know I'm on Ubuntu? I'll run uname-a and it says that right here. Next, I'll sudo over to root. I'll clear the screen and I'll install Apache by running this command, apt-get install apache 2. Do you want to continue? Yes. All right, let's see if the Apache process is running. Grep apache 2, and it is. Now let's talk about the steps to start and stop Apache. I'll clear the screen to make it easy to see. systemctl status apache 2. This tells you the status. To stop Apache, you run systemctl stop apache 2. Let's check the process again. It's not running. Let's start it up. Let's check it again, and yes, it's running. This completes the simple demo on installing Apache on Ubuntu. In this video, let's try to install HTTPD on CentOS. I'm logged into my CentOS box. I can do a uname, and it says right here that it's CentOS. Just to make it easier, I will log in as user root. And then I'll go ahead and install httpd. The command for that is yum install httpd. All right, is this okay? Yes, definitely okay. All right, installation is complete. Let's see if the process is running. It isn't. So let's do this. I'll clear the screen. I'll do systemctl status httpd. It's not running. Let me start it up. Let me check the status again, and it says running. I will grep for httpd again, and it's running this time. So just to conclude this, let's stop it. Let's check the status and let's start it again. Check the status again and it's running. So in this video, we learned how to install httpd, how to start it, how to stop it, and how to check the status. Hey guys, in this quick demo, we'll install Apache on a Docker container. I'm on Docker desktop. I'm going to do Docker PS. There are no containers running. What I'll do is I'll do a Docker run --rm, which will remove the container after I'm done. -it is for interactive. Red Hat UBI 8. Red Hat UBI 8 is the image for CentOS. And what I'll do is I'll execute bin bash, so it will take me into the container. All right, so now I'm on the container. I will install a few packages. We definitely need httpd. We also need proc_ps, which is basically the ps command, and we need ncurses, which is the clear command. All right, so those are complete. I'll clear the screen so it's easier to see. I will check to see if httpd is running. It isn't, so I'll start it up. Right, it throws some warning message. We can ignore it. I also want to show you the configuration folder. It's right here. That's the configuration file. Let's make sure httpd is running. It is. Let's check to see if I can access the page, and I can. Now when I exit, I do a docker ps. I don't see anything running because of that rm flag we specified earlier. All right, this was a quick demo on how to install Apache httpd on a Docker container. In this video, let's go over the configuration files that are used by Apache httpd web server. Depending on the operating system you're on, you might see a slightly different configuration. The details are provided in this table here. The most important takeaway is that both of these, whether it's httpd or Apache 2, are really the exact same. The configuration file names and folder locations are slightly different. We won't go over this table line by line because we can do much better. We will log into each of these operating systems and check these out. But this table serves as a good reference for you. All right, first up is CentOS. In CentOS, the configuration folder is located in etc httpd. And the main configuration file is under conf. It's called httpd.conf. If you look at the process, the name of the process is actually httpd. To find the version of httpd, you add the -v flag to it, and it tells us that the version is 2.4. I'll clear the screen so it's easier to see. The log files are located under var log httpd. So here you see two log files. One is the access log file and the other one is the error log file. We'll go over both of these in detail in another section. Next up is Ubuntu. In Ubuntu, the configuration files are stored under etc Apache 2. And the main file here is apache2.conf. The name of the process is actually Apache 2. So similar to what we did earlier, to find the version, we just have to supply the -v flag, and it says the exact same thing. The version of Apache is 2.4. I'll clear the screen so it's easier to see. The log files are stored under var log Apache 2. And again, the two important files are access log and the error log. All right, that completes this chapter. All right, so let's continue our discussion on directives. Let's open up httpd conf file and let's look at the directory directive. The directory directive has a couple of other directives within it. The important one over here is the require directive. The require all denied means everyone is denied. And this is for root, so that kind of makes sense. But if you drill down and you look at the directory directive for var www, it says require all granted, which means the content in this folder is visible to the end user. I'm skipping a couple of these directives and focusing in on the ones that really matter in a real world environment. We'll discuss the error log and even the access log in a later video. For now, we'll focus on the error document directive. The error document directive allows you to customize the messages that users will see in case of an error. Let's try this out. Let's do curl http. First, let's check to see if the process is running. If I can type, it's not running. So let's start it up. All right, let's check the status again. I'll clear the screen. Let's do curl http localhost folder1 file does not exist.html. And we receive this error message which says 404 file not found. So let's customize that message. Let's go into httpd, search for 404. And what I'll do here is I will change this to the file you are trying to access does not exist, right? And since we made a change to httpd.conf, we'll need to restart Apache. Let's do that. systemctl restart httpd. All right, let's run the same command again. And now we see the custom message which we provided. All right, in this short video, we went over a few more directives that are used by Apache. In this video, we'll discuss how to redirect a URL to another one. And we'll use alias, redirect, and rewrite for this purpose. All right, we are the file system now. So let's try to access http localhost folder1 file1.html. We had done this in a previous exercise. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to access file1, which is under a certain folder. But let's say a user comes to you and he says, I don't like this name. I want to call it my docs. But when I do that, I receive this error. Okay, so this is the error that we customized in the earlier video. So let's switch that, and let's also figure out how to satisfy the user's requirement to redirect my docs to folder 1. Okay, I will open up httpd.conf. I'll search for 404. This is the change we made. I will comment it out, and I'll also search for alias. And in alias, what we need to know is the actual path, right? So we know it's my docs where the user wants it redirected. And if you recall, the actual path is under var www html and folder 1, right? So let's make this change. Let's also verify var www html folder 1 is the right location, and it is. Let's restart httpd, and now let's try to access my docs, and just like that it worked. All right, so this is a simple way of using alias to redirect to another URL, right? Let's try something else. Let's go back to httpd.conf and comment this out. We're done with this, and let's search for redirect. Okay, wait, redirect is right here. So what we can do with redirect is something like this: redirect permanent my docs https, let's say google.com, right? Let's try this out. Let's restart httpd. Let's call my docs, and it says it's permanently moved, and it has moved to this location, right? So what we can also do is we can follow that link because we are the command line, and when you do that, it will basically display google.com. All right, so that's how you use a redirect to redirect from one page to another. All right, let's go back to our file. Let's comment out the redirect. And let's see if we have a rewrite in place as well. We do not. So what we will do is we will use rewrite engine on rewrite rule slash my docs slash file1.html to slash folder1 slash file1.html. All right, let's try this out. Let's restart it. Let's call localhost my docs file1.html, and it took me to the URL, which is folder1 file1.html, right? So that worked as well. So let's keep improving on this. I know this is a very simplistic example, but let's try something else here. Let's say I'll just make a copy of this so you have a reference for it. Let's say I want to take any entry here, anything that follows docs, because it might not be just one file, it could be anything, and I want to place that here, right? So it won't apply just to file 1, it would apply to any file in that location, right? So let me do this. Let me save it, do a restart. See if our curl works. It does. So let's create another file. Let's say cat var .html file2.html. This is file2.html, and let's do a curl on file2.html. Well, okay, I copied it over to the wrong place, so let me delete that and let me create it under folder 1. Folder 1, file2.html. This is file2.html. Let's try it again, and now it works. All right. So at this point, let's open the file again. Any file which is under this location will be redirected to folder 1. While we are at this, let's run another test. I will make a copy of this URL. I'll head over to my browser. We need another piece of information first. We need to do an IP address show to show our IP addresses. And the IP address which the host, which is my user PC, understands is this, right? So I can do a curl on this IP address, my docs file2.html, and that works. Let me take this URL, head over to my browser and type that in. Okay, so this doesn't work because I think I have a firewall daemon running on my system. So let me turn that off. So let me head back over, systemctl stop firewall d. Let me go back, and now I'm able to see this file, right? If you notice, it still says my docs in the URL, right? So let's try something else. Let's open the file. Let's go all the way back to the bottom. Let's add a redirect here for R. Let's restart it. Systemctl restart gpd. Let's do a curl one more time, right? And this time it says it's moved. So this behavior is similar to the redirect we tried some time back, right? So when you do a curl -l, that is you follow it, it shows you the file. So let's head back over to our browser and let's try it again. And this time, if you notice, it actually changed to folder 1, right? Similar to R, there is another flag which is usually used along with R, and that's L, which stands for last. I will add that. I will restart it. I will try to access it again. It works. I'll head on over to my browser, try it again. It still works. So all of these flags can actually be found here. These are all the flags which are provided by Apache. All right. Let's add one more variation to this. All right, so let's try one other item. In this case, what I've done is I've added a extra condition, and to make it easier, I'll just say some location. What I'm saying here is the rewrite condition, if the request URI is getmetogoogle.com and the host is localhost, do a redirect for this URI over to this URI. Okay, so take me to Google basically. So let me take copy of this URL so I don't forget it. Let me restart it. And let's do a curl http localhost and that URL. It says it has moved, which is great, which means our redirect is working. Let's follow it, and that works too. So it works, right? Now, what do you think will happen if I change this localhost to the IP address? Will it work or will it not work? It will not work because this IP address doesn't match the criteria we set in the condition. The condition expects localhost. Anything other than localhost, it will not work, right? So if we put the localhost back, it works. Okay, let's try one more flag before we wrap up this pretty long video. So let's say we run this command and we know it works. We don't really need to navigate over to Google. So what we'll do now is we'll try to change this L to uppercase. Do you think that will work? No, that does not work because it can't match this host name. So let's fix that by heading on over to our configuration file and let's add this flag nc no case, right? Let's restart Apache and let's try the uppercase L again, and this time it works, and we can validate it further by making sure it actually takes us to Google, and it does, right? So in this video we learned a number of things around how to perform redirects, and we used 3 directives for that. And that's the end of this video. In this video, let's go over log file configuration in Apache. I'm at the command line, I'm in the conf folder. I'll open up http log file and search for error log. And in this case, error log is set for logs error log. Logs is actually a relative path. So where is this located? It turns out to figure that out, we need to take a look at another directive that we went over earlier, and that is called server root. So server root is configured for etc httpd. So let's take a look at that at the file system level. etc httpd, and we do see a reference to log files, and that points to var log httpd. So let's take a look at var log httpd, and in this we see those log files, error log and access log file, which we'll discuss later. Since we had the command line, let's take a look at the entries in error log. And some of the entries are pretty self-explanatory. Resuming normal operations, mod SSL does not seem to be enabled, and so on. The one area that is of importance to us is this level, the log level, where it says warn, it says notice, warn, notice. This is the level of errors which are being displayed in the log file. All right, where is this configured? Let's go back into our configuration file and search for another directive called log level. So log level is set to warn. If you look at the description here, it says these are all the levels which you can specify. And if you specify, say, warn, it will only show you information which is higher than warn, which means error, critical, so on and so forth. Anything that's lower, like notice, info, debug, will not show up. But when we looked at the file, we did see a lot of entries which said notice. So why is that happening? Because that should not happen at all. To figure that out, let's head on over to Apache's document page and go over this. Okay, I'm at Apache's document site, and over here is where it mentions that if you log to a regular log file, messages of the level notice cannot be suppressed. And that is why we saw that behavior. Alright guys, the next file of interest to us is the access log file. So let's open up httpd.conf and search for access_log. This is the access log file. This is where it's configured. And it also has a log format associated with it. So the actual entry is this one. And it says combined after that. And what combined stands for is basically the format of the file. So if you look at combine, these are all the fields. All right. Let's go and take a look at the actual access log file. Let's tail -f var log httpd access log. And these are the entries we searched for earlier. Let's do this. Let's head over to a browser and let's search for something. All right, let me head over to the browser and search for the website. And this is what it shows me. So let's go back to our terminal, and this is what we see in the log file, right? So there are two entries. The first entry is a 200 and the other one is a 404. And what it says is the request came from this IP address. The other two fields are blank. This is the timestamp. This is the actual request, get slash, which means the root. Then you have a status code of 200, which is success. Then you have the size. You have yet another field. And this last field is actually the user agent, which means it tells you which browser accessed it. And in this case, it's Chrome, right? This next item is something specific to Chrome. It tries to look for an icon. And since it cannot find the icon, it throws the error 404. All right. Let's head on over to our httpd.conf file and search for access log again. Let's try and understand combine, which is basically the format. So the first entry was the host name. The second entry and the third entry indicates the logged in user and the username. This only works if you are integrated with some kind of LDAP provider or AD. %T was the time. %R is the actual request. In our case, it was get slash, I believe. %S is basically the status code. %B is the size in bytes. The next one is the referrer. And finally, the user agent. So if we go back and we look at the referrer for the second item, it says it came from this, right? So this is basically the IP address which made that request, and this IP address is actually us, right? 192.168.56.107, which is the same. All right. And guys, how do I know all this? I know all this because it's very well documented on the website. So let's head over to the website. Let's search for the log format. And these are all the values you can specify in the log format. All right. Okay, so one of the entries I like to add is either %d, which is time in microseconds, or %t, which is time in seconds. The way this helps us as sysadmins or web admins or even DevOps is that it tells you how much time the system took to process that request. I find this information invaluable and I just make it the default. So let's head back over to our terminal and make these changes. So remember, it's %t and %d, right? Let's open up httpd.conf. Let's look for, what was it, combined log, I believe. Okay, let me search for access log. Oh, it was just combined. Okay. So let me add, oh, wrong one. %d and %t. Now again, since we made a change to httpd.conf, we are going to have to restart it. Let's tail our log files again and let's go and access the website. Okay, I'm on the website now and let's go back and look at the entry. And what it says is the time in milliseconds is 447, whereas the time in seconds is 0. So it was pretty fast. One more item of interest here is the fact that it says 304. So 304 means it was cached because the browser has a cache and this information is cached on the browser, which is why it's 0. All right. And with that, we conclude this video. Hey guys, in this video, we'll learn about reverse proxy. Actually, we'll start with a proxy or a forward proxy, then discuss a reverse proxy, and then try and understand how to configure Apache to serve as a reverse proxy. Let's start with a little bit of a history lesson. Now, back in the 90s, the late 90s, the internet speed was measured in something called baud. And the baud of 9600 was supposed to be, pretty decent. Now a baud is nothing but a bits in second. So if you convert that to bytes, it translates to 1200 bytes per second. Now, when you try to connect to the internet, it would make this interesting sound that is etched into my brain forever. I thought I would share that with you. Now, fast forward to the present day, 2022, I just checked my internet speed and it was around 940 megabytes per second. So if you were to compare that, it would be this gigantic number on the screen. So clearly, we've come a long way since the late 90s. Now let's try and understand what a proxy or a forward proxy is. Now, back in the day, say the late 90s, the way we had a computer set up is we would have a local area network and there would be one PC which would have a dial-up modem which would actually connect to the internet. So traditionally only one PC could have access to the internet, but eventually we figured out a way to configure our browsers on all of these PCs to pass the information to this PC, which would then, send the request out over to the internet. That way, all of these PCs would access the internet. And that configuration in the browser is called a proxy. So the proxy takes your request and hands it over to this computer, and this computer then sends it over to the internet. All right. Honestly, the concept of proxy hasn't changed that much. We obviously do not use dial-up modems anymore, but if you work for a large size company, chances are you already use a proxy. You may not know it, but your browser is probably configured to connect to a proxy server. When you are on the company network or on the VPN, every time you access the internet, the request goes via the proxy. The proxy performs caching. So if a site is accessed frequently, the proxy can serve the request without going out to the internet to pull the contents. In addition, many companies use a proxy to block objectionable sites as well. All right, so now we know what a forward proxy is. Let's now talk about a reverse proxy. So in a way, the reverse proxy is kind of an opposite of the forward proxy, wherein a user goes to the internet, tries to connect to a load balancer, and the load balancer in turn sends the request over to all of these servers. So that is a reverse proxy. So in the earlier example, we were going from within an internal network out to the internet. But in this case, external users who are on the internet are actually accessing sites which are internal to a company. All right, now that you understand the concept, let's try this out. And in our example, what we are going to do is we are going to set up that one PC that we have with Apache HTTPD and also configure Tomcat so that Apache HTTPD will forward the request over to the Tomcat instance. All right. Hey guys, in this video, we'll go over the steps to install Apache Tomcat. And in the next video, we'll go over an actual demo wherein we configure Apache web server to connect to Apache Tomcat. Okay. The high-level steps to install Tomcat are quite straightforward. You install OpenJDK, you download Tomcat, you install Tomcat, and then you start up Tomcat. Let's try this out. All right, I'm on my terminal. I'm going to do a yum search OpenJDK, and it shows up quite a few of them. What I'll do is I'll install OpenJDK version 8. I think I'm good with this one, so I'll do a yum install OpenJDK. Yes. Okay, the installation completed. Now when I type in Java, I should see some option, Java minus version. It says JDK 1.8. Let's do this. Let's see if we can install Tomcat the same way. Well, there's nothing found on the yum repo. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to navigate over to the Tomcat site to try and download the binaries. Let's see how to do that. Okay, I will Google download Apache Tomcat 9. It will take me to this site. And what I'll do is I'll take the link for the tar gz file format. Okay. I'm back at my terminal. I'll do a wget Tomcat and wait for it to download. Okay, there you go. So Apache Tomcat has downloaded. What I'll do is, what do I have in OPT? I'll head over to OPT and I'll do a tar tbf Apache Tomcat. Well, can't find tar, so I'll have to download tar. Yum install tar. Yes. Okay, let's try that command again. This time it worked. Okay, let's try and extract this file. Okay, so I'm in Apache Tomcat. I'll navigate over to bin. There should be a file called startup.sh. I'll start it up and I'll just check for Java process, and there you go, Tomcat is up and running. Okay, let's try and install a sample war file so that we can use it for testing in a later chapter. So I'm in the bin folder. I'll navigate over to web apps, and what I'll do here is I'll search for sample.war. So I'll copy that over, sample.var to this location. And when I do that, I should have sample.var installed. What I'll do next is I'll head over to my browser and I'll try to access port 8080. And I'm able to do that. Let's try and access sample. And that works too. Okay, so we'll use this sample application in the next chapter to try and connect via Apache HTTPD web server. All right, I'm back in my terminal. I'm in the configuration folder. I'll open up HTTPD and add a few entries. These entries are basically the reverse proxy entries. So there are two of them, one for proxy pass and the other one for proxy pass reverse. So once we set this up, anytime we access reverse proxy URI in HTTPD, it will send us to the sample application that we deployed on Tomcat. Okay. Now, since I made a change to the httpd.conf, I'm going to have to restart it. And then I'll just do a simple curl localhost reverse proxy. And it displays the page. It's not very easy to see, so I'll head on over to Chrome. All right, I'm in Chrome. I'm going to replace sample with reverse proxy, and I'll also remove 8080 because 8080 is for Tomcat and we want to connect via Apache. And there you have it. It worked. All right, that concludes this video. In this video, we'll configure Apache for SSL. SSL stands for Secure Socket Layer. Essentially, it secures the data that you're sending over to any website. SSL is also called HTTPS. The opposite of HTTPS is HTTP. HTTP is what we've been using so far, and the default port for HTTP, as we have seen, is port 80. The default port for SSL is 443. Now these are the high-level steps to set up SSL on Apache. The first one is to generate a private key, CSR, and then a self-signed certificate. The next one is to install mod SSL. And finally, configure HTTPD to use all of these, okay? Okay, I'm at the command line. I'm in the conf folder. I'll go one level up. I'll create a keys folder and I'll cd over to that folder and I'll create the private key. OpenSSL gen RSA des3 out my key.key and I'll specify a key size of 2048. It's asking for the passphrase. I will specify my key and I'll specify my key again. Okay, now there is an additional step that we need to do. We need to remove that passphrase. This is probably not a good security practice, and honestly this step will differ from company to company, but let's not forget what the goal of this exercise is. It's to learn the steps to set up SSL, so we will proceed with removing the passphrase. OpenSSL RSA in my key.key out my key.key. Okay, my key. Okay, there you go. So far we have the private key created. The next step is to generate the CSR. The CSR is the certificate signing request. OpenSSL request key my key minus new minus out my key.csr. All right, so it's going to ask us a lot of information now. Country is US, state of province, let's say California, Default city, let's just call it Fremont. Organization is my org, my OU. Common name is CentOS. Email address I don't want to provide. Password I don't want to provide. Company name I do not want to provide. Okay, so now we have two files. Let's just list the contents of the CSR. It's in text format, right? Now if this were a production system, you would take the CSR, you would send it over to your CA. CA stands for Certificate Authority. They would sign it for you and pass it over to you along with the certificate, and then you would import it into your system. Since we are simply learning, we do not need to get it signed by a CA. We'll sign it ourselves and then we will use it. So this procedure will give us a self-signed certificate. The command is this: open SSL x509 minus sign key mykey.key in mykey.csr minus request days. We'll just call it 20. Out is mykey.crt. Okay, there you go. So now we have three files here. We have the key, we have the CSR, and we have the actual certificate. Okay. Now Apache HTTPD comes bundled with a lot of modules. These modules provide a lot of the functionality that makes it so very popular. Let's list these modules. Right, so as you can see, there are quite a few of them. However, the one module that is not bundled along with the install is mod SSL. And this is the module that we need to set up SSL. So if I go here and search for SSL, it's no such folder. Okay, I'll head on over to the configuration folder. I'll open httpd.conf. So keep in mind that these modules that we discuss, they are dynamic. They are loaded dynamically by Apache. And the opposite of dynamic is static. And as is listed here, the static modules can be listed using httpd-l. We'll do that after we exit. And the other point to note is the configuration for all of these modules is stored in a folder called conf.modules.d. Okay. Let's do httpd-l. These are the modules that are compiled along with HTTPD. They are static or statically compiled modules. And the configuration is stored in httpd conf.modules.d. Let's take a look at one of these. And in here, you can see that it's actually pointing to modules and then the name of the module. These modules have an extension of .so. Okay, now let's install mod SSL. The command to install mod SSL is yum install mod SSL. I'll clear the screen. Let's list it out. Okay, so now we see that that module has been installed. Let's check to see if there's a corresponding configuration file. And we see one. And all it does is it loads mod SSL. All right. I'll clear the screen again. Now the final step is actually specify the configuration in a configuration file. So let's take a look at something here. Let's go into httpd.conf and let's search for conf.d. Apache provides us a way to add a configuration files into this folder called conf.d, right? So any additional configuration that you have, you can save it in a file, and as long as the file has an extension of .conf, it will pick it up with this directive. Okay, so let's do that. Let's head over to conf.d and create a file called ssl.conf. conf.d ssl.conf. And actually the install has done this for us, but since I want to keep it simple, I'm going to delete all of this and I'll paste the bare minimum. So some of these directives should be familiar to us. The listen directive listens on a certain port, and that is 443. The virtual host allows us to specify a virtual host that actually listens on a particular port, in this case 443. And all the directives within this block applies to this virtual host. So when any request comes to port 443, these are the directives that get applied. So first one is it will create an error log, and this is the name of the error log. SSL engine is turned on. The certificate file is mykey.crt, and the key file is mykey.key. Okay. Now that we have all of this, we definitely have made a lot of changes. So we need to restart Apache. Now we will do curl localhost. All right. The -k is for insecure. It just ignores the error that we receive because we have a self-signed certificate. Now let's head over to our browser and try the same thing there. All right, I'm back in my browser. I'm going to do HTTPS 192. Okay, now it throws this error, and this error, all it's saying is the connection is not secure. And the reason the connection is not secure is because it's a self-signed certificate, right? And Chrome doesn't know about this self-signed certificate. So in our case, we are still going to proceed with it. And there you go, we see the contents. All right, and that concludes this video.